You've been there, settling in for an evening of TV only to waste half the night scrolling. Enter Fire TV, entertainment with zero effort required. Fire TV serves up personalized recommendations from across all your apps. Not sure what to watch? Just tell Alexa Plus what you're in the mood for and she'll pull up the perfect recommendation. Problem solved. Stop the scroll, start the show. Find what you're looking for with Fire TV. Subscriptions may be required.
Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and a County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us is noted attorney, commentator, and essayist, our good friend and co-host, Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and I am absolutely delighted to have as our special guest Dr. Walid Phares. Dr. Phares is a PhD. He's also a lawyer. He's originally from Lebanon. He's a Lebanese Christian. He had firsthand experience in the politics and the civil war in Lebanon. He's written approximately 15 books, some of which specifically deal and articles specifically deal with the problem of Iran, the problem of worldwide jihadism, the Islamist threat to Western civilization. He was an advisor to Governor Mitt Romney in the presidential campaign, as well as Donald Trump in his first presidential campaign, and he's often on television and radio. Dr. Phares, we're honored and privileged to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Honor is mine. Thank you so much, Judge, for having me and for your guests as well and your co-experts.
All right. Eric, would you start the conversation with Dr. Phares, please?
Absolutely. Dr. Phares, welcome and thank you for joining us. So,
thank you for having me.
So as we're watching or as we're reading what's going on in the media, if we watch the American press or the European press, the coverage seems to range from we're losing to they're rooting for us to lose, which I find quite remarkable. Mm-hmm. And yet there was an article in Al Jazeera on March 16th of this year, written by Muhannad Saloom, in which he points out, now, of course, for people who don't know, Al Jazeera is basically the voice of Qatar. Nothing can be published there unless Qatar supports this, in which he writes that America and Israel are winning. It's the right strategy. It will lead to regime change, and we should stay the course. Who's right?
Actually, that version, which is not just Al Jazeera, because, they speak on behalf of Qatar, have an interest and are committed to the weakening of the Islamic regime in Iran. But that's also the view of many, many media inside Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Qatar, as we just mentioned, Kuwait, and a lot of segments of the Middle East civil societies also have an interest to see that the Iranian people, at the end of the day, the one that lost 50,000 people, victims of the militias of the regime, they're all rooting for the same direction. This regime has been responsible not just for actions and terrorism against the United States. We start in, the hostage situation back in 79 and also the Marine barracks attack. Our soldiers and military have been killed in Iraq for a number of years. That is the American interest, but there are also all these civil societies, starting with the Iranians, but how many people have been killed by Hezbollah, by the Assad regime, by the Houthis down in Yemen, and of course the Hashd militias in Iraq. So there is quite of a consensus, even among people who do not like each other's policies, that this regime has crossed all the red lines, that the actions taken by President Trump and his administration and by Congress are the right thing to do. And on top of all of this, they are winning. I mean, this whole coalition is winning. You don't need to be a political scientist to figure out that the Navy, the Khomeinist or the Islamic regime Navy is gone. There are few dinghies who are still, shooting, but this is going to be over. There is no more Iranian Air Force. There are still some drones and few ballistic that they kept for the last. I compare this a little bit to when the Nazis at the end of 44, early 45, kept firing V1s and V2s to London, whereby the Allies were winning the war. So in my view, yes, we are winning. There are 2 points, and I quickly stop here. We need an ally inside Iran, because at the end of the day, if we're not committed to put troops, and that's the consensus of Americans, we need to have our de Gaulles. We need to have our Iranian Free Army on the inside. And to do that, we need to find and work with a transition government made of the main opposition forces, not just in the diaspora, but also inside Iran. And we are starting to identifying them. These are the facts. But of course, the opposition, the left wing and Islamist opposition are not very happy with it.
Yeah, you talked about the 50,000 people that this government has killed, and just today they hanged, just to talk about how despicable this regime is, a 19-year-old wrestler, Saleh Mohammadi, simply because he spoke out against the regime. But in terms of the uprising, there is no support in the United States for putting boots on the ground to overthrow the Iranian government, although I believe there's a tremendous amount of support for the Iranian government to be overthrown. And I think in watching what's been unfolding in Iran, it's pretty clear to even the most casual observer, that between and among the United States, Israel, and probably Azerbaijan, we've been able to infiltrate the highest levels of the Iranian government. That's the only way we could have this kind of level of intelligence. So I'd like to think that maybe some of these people who have been providing this information and this intelligence to us, that they are prepared to turn on the regime, and that I'd also like to think that in terms of identifying leadership in provinces around Iran, that the United States, the CIA, Mossad are currently on the ground talking to these people, telling them when this bombing starts, this is where you pick up the weapons, and this is what you do and where you go. Do you have any insights as to whether or not that is happening?
We have a lot of input, so let me just draw very quickly what I believe is the equation. First of all, you have the marginal areas. Of course, everybody knows that in Iranian Kurdistan, the 5 major political parties have united, and their national guards, let's call them national guards, have also united. What they're going to do and deliver once the allies, Israel and the United States, will start pounding the militias' positions in that area, and they've done a great job so far. The Iranian Kurds, I'm not talking about Iraqi Kurds or Syrian Kurds, the Iranian Kurds, some of whom have had long-term relationship with our agencies, with the Israelis and with others. They will advance and take over the governmental buildings. That's what the president has encouraged all Iranians to do. If you remember the first few posts, I was privy to, one of them, the first one, or the second one, when he told the Iranians, number one, continue to demonstrate, number two, seizing the institution. Number three, identify. And you just mentioned right now the assassination or the killing of this young man. What I've heard just before I entered to this interview is that the Israelis are now targeting, guess what, judges who have ordered these criminal activities. So there is a plan to weaken the entire system, to allow, at least let's start with 3 regions, if not more, Kurdistan, Ahwaz. Ahwaz is the Arab-speaking province, very rich in oil, that is at the border of Iraq and eventually ends in Kuwait. That area also soon will rise. On the other side of Iran, in the eastern side, Baluchistan, probably one of the largest after Azerbaijan of Iran, there are activities. The rest of these provinces will have to wait for a multi-city uprising, which would happen at any time once the Israelis and the U.S. will finish off the heavy weaponry system. And as I said, the U.S. is doing the heavy lifting. The Israelis are doing the specific kind of actions, such as sending drones. Armies of Israeli drones, or probably backed by Israel, have been targeting the Basij. I call the Basij the lower militia, the larger militia, 300,000. And in comparison, I am calling it the lower SS, meaning what is protecting the regime now are two militias. The IRGC are the upper SS, and the Basij are the lower SS. So yes, I conclude with you that there is a work now to weaken these positions of the regime, these militias, and at one point, both the marginal ethnic groups, minorities around Iran will rise, and a major multi-city uprising will rise. The only missing link is to equip, let's say, to arm those cadre inside those cities. But what I have detected very quickly is that a large number of people who have served in the Basij, who have served in the IRGC, and in the regular army, which is called Artesh. It's not that well equipped, but in urban fighting, you don't need the nuclear weapons. You need just AK-47s and some of the likes, RPGs. So everything is heading towards a final clash where the Iranians will have to, rise and then seize the buildings.
So I just have one more question before we turn it over to Jesse. So the Straits of Hormuz, which the Iranians have closed, obviously for them it's a form of economic suicide because their entire economy functions and revolves around oil, and 90% of it or more is exported off of Kharg Island and through the Straits. And that my sense is that they're gambling in by saying we can absorb more pain for a longer period of time than you can in the West. You weaklings, you can't deal with the economic pain. So my first question is, do you think that's the thought process? And the follow-up question is, how close are we to reopening the Straits?
Well, number one, let's all remember that the state of mind of this elite still ruling the Islamic regime in Iran, they are disoriented. I mean, imagine their leader, the supreme leader who ruled since the death of Khomeini, the founder, has been taken out. To absorb that matter alone is a big deal. Second, many of their commanders, including the commander of the Basij, that's the militia I was talking about. Yes, there are people who are being selected to replace them, but there is a cohesiveness problem inside the regime. That's number one. Number two, yes, the cadre, because they have a lot of ideological cadre, are saying all we have to do is to gain time, wait, we absorb our losses. It's going to be economically bad to us. It's better than us not being in charge. You know what I mean? So if our advice economically to them is, well, over months and over years, you're going to be having to absorb all these economic losses, they will tell us, yeah, but if we don't do this, basically, we won't be here to absorb any losses. That's their logic. It's kind of a suicidal in a sense. But with regard to the Hormuz Strait, it's very simple. As long as they have any type of weapons, they don't have the heavy ones. The cruisers are gone, the destroyers are gone. They have those dinghies, the speedboats, and they have the army of drones. But they are depleted. I mean, with the hyper force that we are applying, especially, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is applying everything we have, and we are replacing them very quickly. It's a matter of time. Should it be weeks, couple months? They will cease fighting because they won't have any more weapons and ammunition, and then they have to retreat to the inside of the country. And I have an opinion on what they're going to try to do. So Hormuz is not going to be a type of a World War I standoff. No, because those drones and those rockets and those are coming from the coast opposed to the strait. And I think the U.S. and Israel will be dealing with that coast. So there is a race between us as an alliance reducing the weapons that can target the ships in the strait, or the Iranian resistance arriving to the beaches on the other side. And that will be the end of the crisis. And when the end of the crisis is on, then everything should be floating back up, economically speaking. So this is not something that is going to cause a permanent economic crisis internationally. It's a tunnel, and the president spoke about it. We have to cross, the Iranian people will have to cross, and on the other side, there will be no more regime.
Jesse, we have a few minutes left. Ask your question to Dr. Phares, please, and I'll have to pass on my chance, but we have to bring Dr. Phares back. But Jesse, go ahead, please.
Dr. Phares, thank you for being here, and I truly appreciate it. I want to bring it a little bit closer to home because you've spoken before Congress and some of your key publications like The War of Ideas, Jihadism Against Democracy. Mm-hmm. What do you point to in Europe and here in the United States that the explosion of Islamic extremism, what is the cause of that, and what feckless acts from governments have allowed for this to occur and basically try to wipe out or replace Western society or the European culture, especially in Europe?
I have been working on this. I mean, that was my career. Since I emigrated to this beautiful country in 1991, technically, all my work as a professor, academician, briefing governments, working with Homeland Security, with the FBI in terms of the strategies, multiple administrations, not all of them, but multiple, is to find out what is happening inside our homeland. And there is a consensus among the experts who look into that direction that there are two long arms that have penetrated the United States over the past couple decades. And some would say that the Muslim Brotherhood, the Salafis, the other type of jihadists have been here longer than the Khomeinist Iranian, meaning type of networks. And very quickly, I would say, already after the end of the Cold War, the Brotherhood, jihadists, bin Laden, etc., have penetrated with some petrodollar money, and they have embedded themselves in our society, not just as a terrorist organizations, but as a social, political organizations. It's only now that the American public, in many states, New York, Texas, other places, they start to see them because they have decided to move out of the shadow and to grab as much as they can, political influence. At the same time, cells have been forming. When it comes to the Islamic Republic of Iran, they have been funding directly the formation, not just of Hezbollah, but other cells that are linked to the Islamic regime inside the United States. So let me put it in a very general way. There is a demography of jihadists in the United States that is very different from when I came here in 1990, 1991. It has multiplied by 10, if not 20. But in the last few years, unfortunately, probably the last 4 years of the Obama administration, the 4 years of the Biden administration, and I'm not talking politics here, just national security, they have accepted that the demography of jihadists will grow much larger for their ideological reasons, and they have opened the border. Not all jihadists came from the border, but 80% of them, they came through Mexico, especially in the last 4 years, so under the Biden administration. And they have constituted in our cities an urban force, some of which we can see in those incidents that we hear about. But actually, we have an open force, which is called the Intifada, the Intifada movement, which is on campuses elsewhere. And if you look at the numbers, we're talking about 100,000 of people. From those, you have cells, jihadist cells, and we have seen so many incidents so far. And the problem now, we have to be very attentive to what the remnant of the regime, the Islamic regime in Iran, may order them and to strike. Fortunately, and I finish here, fortunately, the administration shut down that border in general terms last year. Imagine if that border was not shut down and we are in an open conflict and the globalized the Intifada movement was operational. It would have been a nightmare. It is still a problem, and our Homeland Security, FBI, national security, everybody, our local communities are all working together. But the threat is very high because these are not battlefronts in Iran or in Syria or in Yemen. This is inside our own home country, and then that's a very difficult and delicate matter.
Well, Dr. Phares, on behalf of Jesse Garcia, Eric Levine, and myself, it's a delight having you with us. I look forward to bringing you back. I believe that this is a fight we have to fight. This is a fight that we have to win, that Western civilization is dependent on it. Your expertise in assisting the United States and Israel and our allies in fighting against this cancer of Islamist extremism is absolutely essential. And we'd love to have you back in the coming weeks as this situation and the story continues. So we want to thank you for being here with us today on Let the Record Show. We wish you every Godspeed. Good luck at your meeting at the State Department and your testimony before Congress. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have had you here today. And I look forward to speaking with you directly the next time you're on Let the Record Show. Thank you again, Dr. Phares.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you all, gentlemen. And I'll be more than happy to come back and continue the conversation.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
This has been the first segment of Let the Record Show. We've been honored and privileged to have Dr. Walid Phares as our honored guest, the great expert on Islamist terrorism, Iran, the Middle East, what America needs to do to protect itself against this cancer of extremism. We'll be back in but a few moments with more important and interesting conversation in our second segment of today's Let the Record Show. Please stay tuned.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show. And we were delighted to have Dr. Walid Phares, an expert on Islamist terrorism, jihad, the Middle East, specifically Iran, an author of 15 books and some books dedicated to the Islamic problem in Iran, who predicted that someday this would come to a head. On this show, with Jesse Garcia and Eric Levine and myself, we have been talking about this issue. We saw it coming.
We predicted it.
I have to tell you something. We were, Jesse and Eric and I, we were on top of our game. This is a day that had to come. And I want to introduce this segment of our show, gentlemen, by saying as follows. This was a fight that was a necessary fight. The longer you delayed, the more you got jerked around these fruitless, ridiculous negotiations. They were playing for time. They were building up their ballistic missile capacity, their drone capacity. They were hiding their nuclear projects. They were building up their militias. They were consolidating control and repressing their populace, executing some 40, 50,000 people. The longer you waited, the more dangerous they became. Now, everybody got very excited about the word imminent. The word imminent is a silly word because when they start shooting at you and the bombs are coming over the water and it's about to hit California, is that imminent enough for you? The time to strike is a strike when you know that they've been working for 47 years. When they say death to America and death to Israel, and they're against Western civilization, when their view is to have a hegemonic dictatorship of one religion and an extreme cult of that one religion, and who believe they have a God-given right to destroy other human beings just to impose their will and their view of what society should look like and what the religion should be, then you have a real problem. So imminent, I say to the Democratic Party, grow up. You people who posture and say it was an imminent threat, you're fools. What Obama and Biden did is made it possible for this day to come because you armed, you fed, you gave the munitions to, you gave the breathing time to, you gave the money to build up Islamic terrorist cadres all around the world. And as Dr. Phares told us, it's here in the United States now, and this is very dangerous stuff. And do not hide your head in the sand. And with respect to Biden, who let millions of people in who shouldn't have been in here, don't tell me you're against immigrants and you're a racist. What you are is protecting the borders as a national security matter, and these people allow these people to come in. These people in the Democratic Party, the members of the administration, the members of the Congress, the local leaders who fight every day to make Donald Trump's role in protecting us more difficult, they should be called out for the fools that they are. Now, what should be done now? Whatever has to be done to defeat this enemy, this army of evil that's taken over a country that was a Western country, a country that had good relationships with its neighbors. If you have any doubt that these are extremists, these are radicals, these are a death cult, look at what they're doing. They're not only firing against the military bases of the United States and hitting Israel as often as possible, they're against their fellow Muslims, against the Arab communities that were supposed to be covering for them and they had relationships with. They've been attacking them and killing them, firing into hospitals, into hotels, into schools. So give me a break, Democratic Party. Wake up. Is there only one member of the Democratic Party in the United States Senate, Senator Fetterman of Pennsylvania, who understands?
Josh Gottheimer.
In the Senate, Gottheimer
in the House. Those are your two.
I mean, really, it's absolutely shocking, the foolishness not to recognize that this is an existential threat, and the time to fight existential threats is now, not when they're at your doorstep. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, to build on that point, we talked in the last segment about this article on Al Jazeera by Muhammad Saloom. This article can't be put out, as we mentioned, without the support of Qatar. Qatar is with us. Not only is Qatar with us, Qatar is with Israel and the United States. The Saudis are with us. The UAE is with us. Bahrain is with us. All the Gulf states are with us. The Iranian people are with us. Persian Americans are with us. The only ones that are not with us are the media and the Democratic Party, which in many ways are one and the same. You know, Richard, you talk about imminent. For many of these people, other than for Fetterman and Gottheimer, it isn't imminent because for them it isn't imminent until the mushroom cloud goes up over Jerusalem. So we'll still have time. So because their view is they understand that Israel is the first target. America may be the great Satan and Israel is the little Satan, but they were going to go after the little Satan first. And that was what people like Tim Kaine and Chris Murphy and much of the DSA, the Democratic Socialists, which have filled the Democratic Party, were hoping for. So it isn't imminent. But to your point about imminent, I mean, part of what the Democratic Party does really, really well is this Orwellian newspeak, taking meanings of words and just making them 180 degrees of what they normally mean. Imminent. When they took American hostages in 1979 at the embassy for 444 days, was it imminent then? Was it imminent when they blew up 242 Marines in the Beirut barracks? Was it imminent when they killed 24 service members in the Khobar Towers? Was it imminent when they were responsible for 1/3 of the dead and wounded in Iraq and Afghanistan? I mean, how many thousands of Americans have to be killed and or maimed before all of a sudden it becomes imminent? Because once they kill them, oops, it's already happened. It's not imminent right now. I mean, the whole thing's insane. And then they bring up this concept of proportionality. You know, these are terms that are generally brought up and applied to prevent Western countries, in particular Israel and the United States,
to fight back. This is if you apply the definitions that they want to apply by creating new meanings to words. The United States, Western civilization, which is being spearheaded up until this point by Israel, we have now finally joined that fight, and we are now the point of the spear, where we should be. We would be unable to win. We would be unable to win because no matter what they did to us, we would be violating whatever these terms mean. But this is the internationalization of social justice, that the white West, the oppressors, can't defend themselves against the minority oppressed, like the people of color in Iran or the people of color of Palestine. The whole thing is nonsensical. So we have to do what's in our national security interest. And in what is in our national security interest is making sure that Iran not just doesn't have a nuclear weapon, it doesn't have the ability to blackmail the entire Middle East and the world. And that's what made this, if anything else, imminent. Because if you look at Iran today, which is an extremely weakened country even before the attack, look at the havoc that they can wreak. Look at the havoc they can cause. And the people who were, imagine if they had a nuclear weapon. Imagine if they had all these ballistic missiles. All things that Barack Obama gave them under the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal. We are here because of Barack Obama's nuclear deal.
It gave them a legal path to a nuclear weapon, a legal path to a ballistic missile system,
and
to
tons
deliver
of money to
and
pay,
tons of money
to pay off
for
all the
that,
terrorist organizations,
and to build up their military and advance their hegemonic goals in the region. That is why this is such a difficult task, because Barack Obama funded it. He was the mastermind of this. Now, there are other things that we can do, and it is a time for choosing. Qatar has clearly chosen by reading this Al Jazeera article. Now, the UAE, some would argue, they've chosen because they joined the Abraham Accords. Yeah, that's true. That's all well and good. But we should keep in mind that the UAE are the bankers for Iran. They have the ability to cut off completely the Iranian economy by shutting down their accounts in UAE banks. I think that the United States is perfectly within its rights at this point to say to the United Arab Emirates, close the banks, shut down their economy, choose sides. You must do that. We are putting our men and women at risk. We're putting them in harm's way. And the least you can do, if you don't have the military capability or the guts to be able to get into the fight, is to shut down the Iranian economy. And we expect you to do it. And we demand that you do it. And if you don't, there will be consequences. And then the UAE will do it. But this is a time for choosing.
Well, Jesse, I'm going to turn it over for your comments in a minute. You know, as we were walking into the studio, it was finally announced, and Eric and Jesse have alluded to it earlier. It's finally announced that some of the European countries are going to help the United States. Support the United States in freeing up the Straits of Hormuz. We need to know what that is. I think give out bags of pretzels and potato chips to our people.
A jockstrap and a brassiere.
No, I mean, really, what does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know what it means, but I do know it's time for them to wake up, because the beneficiaries of having free maritime navigation is their economies. It's the European economies that are most at stake.
Actually, Richard, can I just jump in 1 second? Really important. The country that's probably most adversely impacted by closing of the Strait of Hormuz is China.
And that's good.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
That's good.
90% of the Iranian exported oil, which is sanctioned, goes to China at a huge discount. China needs that oil for it to function. People should not lose sight of the fact that part of the reason that we have undertaken this military attack is precisely because this compromises China.
Well said. Jesse, your turn.
Yes, and just to build on that, just remember, another ally of the United States, which earlier this week their prime minister was with President Trump and expressed hesitancy to assisting in the opening of the Strait of Hormuz, was Japan. They get 70% of its crude oil through the Strait of Hormuz. But let me just speak a little bit to the members of the Trump base, the Make America Great Again. That those that may have had some concerns that this is not part of the America First agenda.
The Tucker Carlson types.
Always been.
Right.
It has always been. And I'm not even speaking to the extremists, because they're here, they're doing things for separate reasons, either for profiteering or for just stupidity. But those that maybe have the middle class that the Trump speaks to and makes up his base. This is America First. From the moment he came down the escalator and attacked the Obama-Iran deal and saying he would repeal it, he made it part of the America First deal back in 2015 and during his first presidency, when he pulled the United States out of that ill-fated deal that basically gave an airplane full of cash to terrorists in Iran and that regime. And this is an important action that has to be taken in the Middle East, because it doesn't just affect national security, it doesn't also affect domestic security, it affects our economy as we go forward. This is an action that needs to have been taken. And let's not forget Donald Trump as a candidate in 2024, and I won't use the language he used because of FCC rulings on this radio station, but he said he's going to bomb the crap out of them, while Obama gave them money and Biden gave them money. So this is, to my friends in the Make America Great Again faction, you are our allies. We are one with the president. We need you during the midterm elections. there is some short-term pain here, but the long-standing peace and economic viability and the economic and energy independence that will come from a regime change in Iran and peace finally in the Middle East with our ally Israel is first and foremost part of the America First agenda. Now to move forward as we go forward. The president has demonstrated that he is an amazing poker player. He is an amazing deal maker. When he basically had called out his allies in NATO, when they were all saying, we're not getting involved, we're all part of this mission, we're not going to do anything, almost unilaterally, as we were moving forward with, as this show was airing now on this weekend, you have Japan, Britain, France, Germany, Italy, and the Netherlands all pledging support for securing the Strait of Hormuz and reversing their earlier refusals amid United States pressure. And let's talk about what you brought up with in this segment, first and foremost, Judge Weinberg. The definition of imminent. Is imminent going to be a mushroom cloud over Israel, over a United States city? Or is it going to retake the fight to a hurt regime that needs to be replaced? Earlier this week, during the presentations of the National Security Intelligence Community, FBI, the Director of National Security, and the Director of CIA before the House Committee and the Senate Committee, Senate Intelligence Chair Senator Cotton and CIA Director Radcliffe, two individuals that have far more information that's classified than we do. Both acknowledged and verified for the American people that Iran was months away from a ballistic missile that could possibly penetrate and reach the United States of America. That's an imminent threat. It was an imminent threat that whether or not the actions taken of July of 2025 to eliminate those nuclear facilities in Iran in a joint effort between Israel and the United States effectively did what it needed to do. It certainly slowed them down, stopped them in their tracks. But the fact that they had a ballistic missile possibly months away to be able to hit this homeland is something that the president needed to take decisive action again under the America First agenda of securing our homeland here. So to my friends, I don't know what the definition of imminent is. I agree with you. I'm not one that's going to say the definition of imminent is a mushroom cloud over an ally or over one of the United States cities. It is one where we're taking this fight to Iran, eliminating that regime, and replacing it with a Western-leaning government that at least would be friendly and bring peace to this region.
Well, we have to take a break. This is Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted commentator, attorney, and essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. We'll be back in about a few moments for our final segment of this week's show. Please stay with us for more important and interesting conversation.
Let the Record Show with Judge Richard Weinberg, Suffolk County Republican Committee Chairman Jesse Garcia, and essayist and commentator Eric Levine on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We are back on Let the Record Show for our final segment of this week's show. Switching gears and focus, let's come to New York City. Let's come to the St. Patrick's Day Parade, which happens as most of us know, on March 17th of every year. And one of the two great St. Patrick's Day parades in this country are either New York or Chicago. And obviously, New York is the first city, and Chicago used to be the second city. Not so much of a second city anymore under the leadership of the state and of Chicago anymore. But here we are, the first city of America, and we elected a new mayor in the fall. And I was against him. I was very clear that I was against him. I described him as being a clear and present danger to the survival of this city. Since the economic engine for New York State is New York City, I think it's a threat to the state of New York as well. And since New York City is an economic engine, certainly for the Northeast economy, and in large part, one of the two great economic engines, two or three great economic engines for the entire country, I didn't think it was a good idea to have an Islamist, an apologist for terrorism, becoming our mayor, a socialist who was hostile to private property, who wanted to discourage every opportunity to give people freedom of opportunity, but he wanted to reallocate resources for his pet projects. So, but people say, give him a chance, maybe he'll moderate, maybe he'll get some common sense. After all, he kept Jesse Tisch as police commissioner, and she's great. And we were fortunate we have Julie Menon as Speaker of the City Council, and she's temperate and moderate and common sense. So maybe things will work out. So I sat by and I said, well, I'm a little skeptical, but I'll watch and then come to my conclusions. So what happens on Tuesday? He hosts a breakfast. He deigns to show up to meet the new cardinal at this breakfast. And then he meets a whole...
After he snubbed him when he was...
He snubbed him when he was
inaugurated invocation with him.
Invocation, right. But, okay, so some political advisor said, no, be smart, go there. So he went there. And so what does he do? Instead of talking about the glories and the contributions of the Irish community to the United States of America, what an important day St. Patrick's Day is, not just to the Irish community, but to all Americans who believe in true diversity and recognizing other people's cultures who contribute to this country. What does he do? He launches a tirade against Israel and accuses them of genocide. And this is on the heels of a few days before, comes out that his wife is a tried and true believer in radical Islamists. And in more recent days, it even becomes true that she's been doing this forever. When she was a college kid, she supported Palestinian terrorism, attacks on airplanes and airports. So this is the leader of the greatest city in the United States, the greatest city in the world.
Well, he's the mayor. He's the mayor. Let's not call him the leader.
Well, he is the mayor, and in a certain sense, he's the leader.
The word mayor with him.
Yeah. Well, it raises a real problem about how to deal with him. But I'll defer to people with more political experience than I have to how to deal with this character. So we'll start with Eric, and then we'll go to Jesse. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, just to characterize who he is, he's an anti-American communist Jew hater. What else do you need to know? What could go wrong? But that's who he is. And he used St. Patrick's Day and the event to prove that every day in New York is anti-Zionist Day. So he welcomes the former president of Ireland, Mary Robinson, welcomes her to Gracie Mansion. One of her great claims to fame is that while she was president of Ireland, she was very anti-Israel. And he gives a toast. I say this over the past few years as we've witnessed genocide. Who can better understand those who weep than those who have been made to weep for so long? The story of the Irish, both in Ireland and in New York City, is at one time a story of oppression, of subjugation, and discrimination. Well, let's just stop there for a second. So that's all the Irish are? People of victimhood? They have no achievements other than being victims? I mean, how insulting to the entire Irish community. The Irish are some of the greatest Americans to have ever lived. They are part and parcel of the fabric of not just this city, but this entire country. But for Mamdani, all they are victims. He goes on to say, I say this is over the past few years have we witnessed a genocide unfold before our eyes. There has been deafening silence from so many. For those who have long cared about universal human rights and the extension of them to Palestinians, silence, however, is nothing new, for the Palestinians are so often left to weep alone, yet former President Robinson has never been silent. So I guess he's comparing what's happened to the Irish to, a genocide, and comparing and just making up the lie that there's a genocide of Palestinians. But this is all it is. For this guy, it's all about victimhood. And where is he now on the 50,000 people that have been killed in Iran by this government? Where is he now on this 19-year-old wrestler who spoke out against the regime? Dead silence. Dead silence. Because the people that are doing the killing, or the people that are in power, are not Jews. Because if the Jews are the ones that are defending themselves, then we must speak up, because Jews are not allowed to defend themselves. But for the Palestinians, victimhood has always been the strategy. By always saying no, by always saying we are the victims, we don't have to make any concessions, all we have to do is say no, we believe, and they've been correct up until Donald Trump, that people will put pressure on Israel to make more and more concessions. Just keep saying
and
no.
pressure on the United States and the Western powers.
Exactly. But that now, since October 7th, and the Israelis have now completely given up on the two-state solution, that's just not going to go anywhere. But let's talk about the Palestinians for 1 second and their quote-unquote victimhood. Look, they could have had a state, and in 1948, the UN resolution created two countries, one Jewish, one Arab. The Arabs said no, declared war on Israel, tried to destroy it, and they lost. And that's what created the Palestinian diaspora and Palestinians living in camps in Gaza and the West Bank.
By the way, the Jordanians, really, that was the Jordanian land is where they were supposed to be, and the different regime took that over.
Well, if you really want to go back, when you had the original British-mandated Palestine, it wasn't just Gaza, Israel, and the West Bank. It included modern-day Jordan. And in 1929, when the Hashemites were thrown out of the Arabian Peninsula by the Saudis, the Hashemites were on their way to Damascus. And the French said, we don't want them in Damascus. So they called up the British and they said, what are we going to do? So the British Prime Minister called the king and said, where are you? He said, well, we're in Amman. And he said, okay, stop in Amman, we'll create a country. And in 1929, Jordan was created for the Hashemites. So 60% of the original British-mandated Palestine was given already to Jordan, which became an Arab state. The remaining 40%, which was what was being carved up in 1948, one Arab and one Jewish. And as I said, the Jews said yes, the Arabs said no. They declared war and created the refugee problem. So they also, in 2000, with Bill Clinton, negotiated a two-state solution, and Arafat said no. And there's a very famous exchange. Arafat is about to leave, says to President Clinton, Mr. President, you are a great man. To which Bill Clinton responded, no, I am a failure, and you have made me one. And then in 2005, Ariel Sharon unilaterally just ordered all Jews, all Israelis out of Gaza. There were no Jews in Gaza from 2005 to October 7th, 2023. And yet, Hamas wins, they elect Hamas to run Gaza, and they turn it into a terrorist hellhole instead of creating their own country. They were given a country. What did they do with it? And then in 2000...
So much for apartheid.
Yeah, well, apartheid, we can just digress for 1 second before we get to 2008. Apartheid, let's remember what apartheid is. It's a political system that says a certain group of people cannot participate in the political process. They have no rights. In Israel, Arabs sit in the judiciary, they sit in the Knesset, they were part of the last government, they can own property, they own businesses, and they can live wherever they want. They serve in the military. So this notion of apartheid, the only apartheid regime is what Mahmoud Abbas and Hamas envision. Mahmoud Abbas wanted to make part of his deal in 2008 that no Jews would be allowed to live in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria. But even that wasn't enough for him. George Bush negotiated a better deal for Abbas as part of a two-state solution than Clinton had negotiated back in 2000. And Abbas said no. And why did Arafat say no? And why did Hamas declare war? And why did Arafat say no? Because part of any arrangement required them to make peace with Israel and recognize a Jewish state of Israel to exist within internationally recognized and secure boundaries. And no Palestinian has been willing to do that. And Mamdani, Zohran Mamdani, just doesn't seem to care because he buys into the fact that Israel as a Jewish state has no right to exist.
He supports from a river to the sea, which is extermination of the state and the entire Jewish community in Israel.
Right. Globalize the Intifada. We've said this on the show all the time. He supports the concept of killing Jews wherever they are. Just don't use the expression. He never comes out and says, I'm against it. He just says, this is...
I don't use those words.
I don't use those words. I don't use those words. I mean,
he uses his actions. I mean, it seems that ever since he's become mayor, he has a very nasty habit of taking every public event he has and turning it into an opportunity to bash Israel. As you pointed out, with Mary Robinson being at Gracie Mansion for this, this former far left president who was in support of Palestine. Him hosting her on St. Patrick's Day, which boggles the mind. It's all an organized effort to bash Israel and, as you said, this global intifada.
Yeah, I mean, and this is why we've discussed this before on the show also. There's a picture, and I believe it's in the New York Post, of Mamdani marching in the St. Patrick's Day parade, and standing right next to him is New York Police Department Chairman, Commissioner Tisch. She's a wonderful public servant, and her heart is in absolutely the right place. But she must resign. She can't march with the guy because it legitimizes him. Because the next thing he says is start bashing Jews and Israel. And when she marches with him, she mainstreams him. And when he calls out and he accuses Israel of a genocide and no one says anything, if she doesn't say anything, she's legitimizing him. Where the hell is Chuck Schumer? When Mamdani's wife says all these horrible things, where is he? He's silent. When Mamdani stands up and accuses Israel again falsely in a blood libel that they're committing genocide, where is Chuck Schumer? Where are any of the Democrats? And the real problem becomes the more times you just tell this lie over and over again. It becomes
normalized.
And it's not challenged, it becomes normalized. It becomes part of the lexicon. It's accepted. And people have to start speaking up on both sides of the aisle. It can't just be John Fetterman and Josh Gottheimer on the Democratic side.
Absolutely.
So, Jesse, as you look at this now, and you're a political expert, what do we do with the fact that we have another 3.5 years of Mamdani as mayor of the city of New York? How does one handle this phenomenon?
I think it's part of it is containment, because he is elected, unfortunately, by the stupidity of 1 million Democrats in a primary that's been stacked because, as they do it only in the city of New York, it's a ranking system. I do have, as much as we hate and distaste the politics of the city council, it seems that they're at odds with much of his actions as it pertains to bashing Israel and bashing the Jewish people. But this is something that's ingrained with them. We're off air, and we were going to be talking about it because I know Eric wanted to speak about it. We'll just speak about Mamdani's wife. The fact that it was just uncovered that she was in support of 70 social media posts related to October 7th, 2023 attacks on Israel. Posts that categorized October 7th as an attack of a collective liberation, claiming that reports of sexual violence, which we saw the images of babies beheaded and people raped and children raped, were mass rape as a mass rape hoax. And
putting babies literally in microwaves, putting tires on people and setting them afire, cutting out the babies from pregnant women, killing children in front of their parents in front of their children. And she endorses this. And by the way, this is not a recent phenomena. As I said earlier, you go back to college days where she supported Palestinian terrorists seizing airports and airplanes. And he says, well, she's not a public person. She's a private citizen.
She is a public person. It's almost like saying that the first lady or the second lady are not public people. The second gentleman under Kamala Harris as vice president is a public person, and issues that he was involved with came up and became part of this scandal for the Biden administration and Biden-Harris administration. It happens one and all, whether you're the spouse or not. Once you are the mayor, your family is a public figure here, and what her actions have and her decisions to do things in her support have ramifications, not just on his administration, but of course on those that basically she's hurting. In this case, it's hurting the Jewish people of Israel and here in the city of New York and throughout the country, in fact.
Well,
but again, we talk about we need more people to speak up on a bipartisan matter of that. I still say, and I'm going to touch upon one person that you and Eric both love, the bash, Chuck Schumer, the biggest hypocrite. I was told I was allowed to use the word feckless twice in this 1 hour. If there's someone who's feckless, it is Chuck Schumer for turning his back on the Jewish state and the Jewish people during the course of his later part of his career, especially from the Obama administration to present.
The man has no feck. He's feckless. There's no feck.
Imagine going through life with no feck. Well, we're going to have to
feck.
All right. Gentlemen, another great show. I want to once again thank Dr. Walid Phares for being our guest in the first segment. Jesse, thank you. Welcome back. I'm glad you're getting better.
Thank you.
Eric, it's always good to have you here, even though you try to put me in my place, which is something that very few people can do, except maybe my wife. This has been Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party, noted attorney, commentator, essayist Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg. As always, God bless you. God bless your families. God bless America. I hope we have peace, but I don't want peace in our time by
I hope
appeasement.
We have victory. I hope we have victory.
I want peace.
Victory.
I want peace
Absolutely.
that comes through not appeasement, but through moral certitude and putting down terrorists and dangerous people who threaten all of Western civilization. We'll be back next week for more of Let the Record Show. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Let the Record Show with Judge Weinberg, Chairman Jesse Garcia, and Eric Levine. You can hear Let the Record Show Sunday mornings at 6. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
My dad taught me a lot, including how easy it is to forget to cancel things. So I downloaded Experian, my BFF, big financial friend. Experian could help me cancel my unused subscriptions and lower my bills, saving me hundreds a year. Get started with the Experian app today. Your big financial friends here to help you save smarter. Results will vary. Not all bills or subscriptions eligible. Savings not guaranteed. $631 a year. Average savings with 1+ negotiations and 1+ cancellations. Paid membership with connected payment account required. See Experian.com for details.
Experian.